All right, welcome to the second one of these calls in 2025. This is the first call where we will review a full month, and this one will be going through the full month of January. So, the best news when we look at January here is that for air charter volume is up, and this is the first time we've been able to say that for a long time, over a year, so it's a very positive trend, up 1.1% for the month. And when we look at this multi-year view going all the way back to 2019, we can see we're up slightly here, but still have a long way to go to get back to the glory years. And it's a slightly different story, though, when we look at Part 91. And for reference, Part 91, as far as this analysis goes, does include 91K, which is fractional. So the combination of corporate and fractional flying is up 5.6% and has been doing quite well, much better than charter over the past few years. And as you can see here, this was a record January when we look at the Part 91 and Part 91K market. When we combine Part 91 and Part 135, you can see that we're up over 2024, but we are not up over the really strong years of 2023 and 2022. So let's take a look at some size classes. We'll start with the light jet size class. The holiday travel period affected a lot of the demand here, and for light jets, they just aren't as popular during this time period, partly because more people tend to travel together and partly because of the stage lengths. There are longer length trips here. So the private or the light jets in this month were off 5%. But when we shift over and look at mid-sizes were up 8.7%, so that's pretty strong. The super mids crushed it, up 12.2% year over year, and look at that, almost 1,400 hours on the peak day there. Large cabin also had a super strong month, up 7.3% for the month, and it's a larger segment, so you can see they were kind of approaching 2,000 hours in the cohort of jets that we track here. Then when we look at turboprops, like the light jets, not really the month for these guys, so off 13.6% on the turboprop segment. Looking at our major metro markets, we start out with LA. There was a big spike in airline activity here at the beginning of the month. When we pull the airlines out of the traffic for Los Angeles International, you'll see that traffic was up 7.1%. A good chunk of that is people getting dropped off for international flights out of the West Coast. Also, folks for meetings in the city. When we shift over to Van Nuys, which is really close to where the fires were there was a negative impact on the traffic there for sure, off 24.4% for the month. LaGuardia on the East Coast is an airport we put in for reference to the airline activity in the New York metro market. The big dips are Saturdays where there just aren't as many flights because it's a predominantly business-focused domestic airport. Teterboro, which is the business aviation capital of the New York metro market, was pretty much on par with last year, up 0.6%. However, when we look at other airports in the area, they had different trends. White Plains was up 12%. Farmingdale was up 13%, 13.3 to be exact. Both of these airports are pulling folks that live on Long Island and in southern Connecticut, and benefiting or serving their holiday travel needs. Where New York is still, it's somewhat of a origin airport for folks that live in the market, but there isn't as much business travel, obviously, over the holiday period, and that would have impacted the Teterboro market. And then when we look at Morristown, it's also closer to Teterboro, up just 0.5%, but still all positive there. Then we move to the center of the center of the country. We get to Chicago. Midway, this including the airlines, was off 3.1%. When we pull the airlines out and just look at the BizAv stuff, we're up 4.6%. When we go to the suburbs and look at Milwaukee or Chicago Executive, we're up 16.8%. So strong month for the Chicago metro area. Looking at Atlanta, there was an ice event that dropped airline traffic in there a little bit. When we pull out the airlines for Hartsfield, there was a spike here that was around the college football game, and here it also affected Peachtree, DeKalb, all of the airports, including Fulton County. Everybody in the Atlanta metro area benefited from the game there. And then when we look at Boston, up 6.3% when counting the airlines, up 9.8% when we pull them out. That's really because there were some really low days last year that did not repeat this year. Bedford, pretty much on par, 0.2% up over last year. And then here is Reagan National. Unfortunately, this dip is the closure of the airport there due to the tragic accident last week. And then here is Dulles, where traffic, of course, this is an international airport, so you see a very different pattern when we include all the airline traffic. And there's been a lot of additional activity in and out of this airport on that front. And it's really obviously stands out as inauguration traffic here when we pull out the airlines and just show the GA. And that pattern also carried over to Manassas, which is the suburban airport we track for the DC metro market. So you can see these spikes here were folks coming in and departing the inauguration. And when we look at Charlotte, banking capital of the U.S., we can see that including the airlines, traffic was up 2.1%. When we pull out the airlines, traffic was up actually 11%. So it's a nice, strong start to the year for the folks in Charlotte. When we look at the Hamptons, it's not really worth saying much. It's off season for sure. Aspen, different story. Aspen was a little softer. All the ski mountains were a little softer in December than we normally see. The warm weather destinations were more popular, but that certainly wasn't the case in January. We're seeing a nice bump there. Now this is with the airline traffic. When we pull the airlines out, it's actually on a percentage basis even better, up 21.3%. Eagle with the airlines was 15%, 13.9% when we pull them out. So, but still very strong, over 200 flights there was as people were coming home from the holidays, and then you started to see some spiking there as folks were coming out for other vacation weeks in January. Here is Denver Centennial, up 0.5%. Nantucket also just off season. Martha's Vineyard off season. Napa, dead even with last year, 817 flights over the last half of the month. Here is Bandon Dunes, up 4.6%. So those are our West Coast leisure destinations. Here is Scottsdale, which has always been a super popular private jet destination. It's becoming a sort of the West Coast hub of private aviation, and up 5.1%. Here is Jackson Hole, another ski destination that's doing well, up 17%. Then we get to Hilton Head, also doing well in the month of January, up 3.5%. Our other cities category, we bounced over to Addison Airport in the Dallas market, which was off 4.8%. Then we jumped to Dallas Love. This is including the airlines that are in there. We were off 1.7. When we pull them up, we are at 4.7. This is a super busy airport in the entire GA system, 7,373 flights for the month. That is a ton, and it's good to see it on a positive trend. And then here we'll roll down to Florida. We've got Opelika up 1.3%. We have Fort Lauderdale International for all traffic was up just 0.9%. When we pull out the airlines, we had a nice GA spike here, up 23.4%. And then Fort Lauderdale Exec, pretty much on par with last year, just 0.2%. It does always strike me that Fort Lauderdale Exec and Fort Lauderdale International, despite being so close to each other, oftentimes have different patterns. And here is Naples. So we've bounced over to the west coast of Florida, up 9.4%. Very popular over the holiday, and just an awful lot of activity back and forth throughout the month. Here is West Palm. Note that compared to Dallas, we've got more traffic at West Palm than we do in Dallas, and pretty strong month here. This is including all the airlines, I should say. So you're over 10,000 flights compared to the 73 for Dallas, just as a relative comparator there, and a very, very strong month, but up 5.5%. So that's the end of, well, I shouldn't say that. There's one more, Nassau, that we keep in here. So also popular over the holidays and popular mid-month here, but off 1.6% for the month to date. Now, looking at our top routes, let's get down to the most recent week. Here we go. Very typical, very strong New York to Florida. 6 of the top 10 OD pairs are New York to Florida city pairs. A 7th is Palm Beach to Boston, so pretty much in the same category. Then we have a couple of flights out to the islands there that make up the difference. So pretty much all typical southern travel patterns there. Note that the Van Nuys to Teterboro Transcon, which is our heaviest transcon, didn't make it, well, made it as number 10. And then the Las Vegas to Van Nuys, which oftentimes is the busiest OD pair, didn't make it until number 11. A matter of fact, if we took out seasonality and looked at the entire year, Las Vegas to Van Nuys is the most heavily trafficked OD pair, but not right now. One comment I would make is that the island and Mexico traffic is stronger than I am used to seeing this time of year. So the islands in Mexico are more popular than normal. Other than that, this looks pretty typical for this time of year. Now, looking at fuel, I will bounce ahead. I keep a few prior weeks in this deck. Here is the most recent week. The price changes are all super small, under 10 cents. West Coast cities benefited a little bit. Prices dropped slightly, with New Mexico kind of doing better than most. I think that's 5 cents drop. And then we had a few states here that kind of increased, but still just very minor changes. We've seen much bigger swings in prior weeks. And then just putting this all in perspective, the most expensive fuel in the country is Rhode Island, Colorado, and Alaska. Those are the deep blues. And the center of the country is the least expensive gas. Nothing new. We've been seeing this pattern for quite some time. It's not, not a big surprise there. So to wrap the whole thing up, I would say this is a pretty strong month. Really nice to see charter up year over year. Nice to see the 91 and 91K really crushing it. And you can see that based on the city and the events and things that were going on in the different cities, we saw some big ups and some big downs over the month, and some cities that were pretty much even with last year, which is typical. The things move around, traffic moves around just depending on what we got going on. The next one of these calls will be on February 20th. I may have to hold it at a different time. So this I'm actually recording after the live call, but the live call, if you want to get on it, I will send a note with an updated time. It is probably going to be 1 o'clock-ish because I have another meeting that afternoon. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will be back with another one in a couple of weeks. Until then, blue skies and tailwinds.